Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And yes, you read the title, you know exactly what it is that I'm reviewing, and as was teased in the last review video, this one stop-motion film about a sneaky, clever, fantastic fox, and this being directed by good old Wes Anderson, and, well, George Clooney voicing the titled character, and this being based off of a Roald Dahl book. Yes, that's right, guys. I am finally reviewing Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yes. Fantastic Mr. Fox from 2009. Yeah, I gotta say, it's a really, really good stop-motion animated film, and yeah, from what I could tell, it is kind of underrated, but come on, it is a fantastic stop-motion movie masterpiece. Am I not wrong? Not to mention that, Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox made its way into the Criterion Collection. Now, if you are familiar with that and the list of movies that are a part of the Criterion Collection, and Fantastic Fox being one of them, being one of the only few animated feature films to be in that collection. And later on, Disney and Pixar's WALL-E would find its way in the Criterion Collection. It's amazing. But yeah, Fantastic Mr. Fox was my first exposure to Wes Anderson's film style, his filmmaking, and, well, pretty much, this was my first Wes Anderson film. And when I got to know who this guy was and how he does his movies in a specific style and tone, and how he, how he has his actors perform, and from here and there, and with the camera shots, and, if I remember correctly, because, there's some deadpan performance, I think that's the correct way to say it, but, yeah, and you can tell, and especially in this, and for any of, Wes Anderson's other movies. But at the same time, in Fantastic Mr. Fox, it does really good at bringing some emotion and stuff like that. Yeah, so I remember when this movie was announced, I remember getting a kid's catalog or something, and there were some behind-the-scenes photos of Fantastic Mr. Fox. I didn't know what it was back then, but eventually, when the movie came out, and yeah, I don't recall me and my parents going to see Fantastic Mr. Fox in theaters. When it came out on DVD, yeah, that's when we did watch it. We got a copy of Fantastic Mr. Fox on DVD, we watched it, and as I recall, I think both me and my parents, we really enjoyed it. So yeah, and something about Fantastic Mr. Fox and what Wes Anderson brought to this stop-motion film beyond anything. Seriously, stop-motion in Wes Anderson's style of filmmaking, it's amazing. It really is amazing how, even with a stop-motion film and also with Isle of Dogs, able to do the exact same, cinematography and camera angles, that kind of stuff, as he's done in his live-action movies, and incorporating that into the world of stop-motion. Yeah. But just overall, I really enjoyed Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's definitely a great piece of stop-motion, one of the top best stop-motion animated films. If I'm not wrong. Anyways. Okay, so, as always, read the description / the story. After 12 years of bucolic bliss, if I'm getting that right, Mr. Fox breaks a promise to his wife and raids the farms of their human neighbors, Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. Giving in to his animal instincts, endangers not only his marriage, but also the lives of his family and their animal friends. When the farmers force Mr. Fox and company deep underground, he has to resort to his natural craftiness to rise above the opposition. Okay, so with that out of the way, getting into the film itself, yeah, because, an interesting way that, Fantastic Mr. Fox opens, and, and because you know that this is a Wes Anderson film, you know what you're getting yourselves into. And literally, because the first thing that we see, aside from the opening logos, from, like, say, 20th Century Fox and such, we start off with the lyrics to the Boggis Bunsen Bean song. Boggis Bunsen Bean, one fat, one short, one thin, these horrible crooks, yada yada yada, so yeah. And then we get the opening credits, with the logos, 20th Century Fox, etc., presents Fantastic Mr. Fox, and it's a copy of the book of Fantastic Mr. Fox, which, by the way, speaking of which, quick background, because Wes Anderson, his mom bought him his first book when he was 7 years old, and that being Fantastic Mr. Fox. He and his brother, fell in love with Roald Dahl's work, and, because fast forward, and, when Wes Anderson got into the movie business, and when there were attempts to do a Fantastic Mr. Fox film, and with Henry Selick originally considered to direct it, which didn't happen, but that is until Wes Anderson stepped in, and thus bringing a movie adaptation in stop motion of Fantastic Mr. Fox to life. So, yeah. Anyways, so with that out of the way, because again, with the opening of the movie and showing, the book, and, we of course see our main character, Mr. Fox, being voiced by good old George Clooney. Yeah. So, and it's interesting because I like how, a few songs that they incorporate in this film, mainly just two. Two from Disney and a couple of others, like they do. Fantastic Mr. Fox does incorporate one song from the Beach Boys and a few others, one of the Disney songs that we hear, and Mr. Fox is listening to it, is The Ballad of Davy Crockett. That was really cool. And Mrs. Fox stepping in, and Mrs. Fox being voiced by good old Meryl Streep. And she just got back from seeing the doctor, and, Mr. Fox, questioning how she's doing, and, what the doctors say, and so on. And they start to go for a little walk until they come to this, barn location, and where swabs are at, goose, duck swabs, however Mr. Fox calls them and such. And there's this one random moment, because, some interesting and random moments that happen in Fantastic Mr. Fox, and with the stop motion and with the puppets. One moment where Mr. Fox comments on his wife, that she's practically glowing, and then we cut to a shot where she's literally glowing. Mr. Fox, saying, maybe it's the lighting. And then a Beach Boys song plays, Heroes and Villains, and them sneaking past, a couple of farmers and a dog, and making their way into one of the coops, and, capturing some duck, goose, swab, how they call them, how they prefer to call them. And one moment where Mr. Fox sees, and he believes it's a fox trap, and, analyzing, how it specifically works, and he pulls the chain, and it comes down on them. And then Mrs. Fox, she breaks the news to her hubby that she's pregnant. And at times in this movie, Mr. Fox talking with his teeth closed, and, wow, we're gonna have a cub. Honey, that's great news. And if they would still be alive by tomorrow, and when we see two of those farmers obviously making their way to where they're in the fox trap, Mrs. Fox has her husband promise that if they are alive by tomorrow, he has to find himself a new line of work and such. Like, his days, and hers, of course, being, hunters, stealing birds and so on, are over. And, well, he promises to do so. And we cut to 2 years later, and for foxes, that's 12 fox years later. And they're living in this hole, and, we see, of course, Mr. and Mrs. Fox, living happily, and Mr. Fox, he's not too comfortable and getting tired of living in a hole. And so he's interested in buying a tree, but Mrs. Fox, addressing her husband that, that foxes live in holes and, wouldn't be a good idea to live in a tree. But, he's really insisting on doing so. And again, him getting tired of living in a hole and explaining to Mrs. Fox, about, his early days of living in a hole and when his father died. Yeah. And also, we get the introduction of their son. Yeah, because again, she told Mr. Fox that she was pregnant, and 2 years later, they have a son named Ash, being voiced by Jason Schwartzman. Yeah. And Ash, Ash being such an interesting character in this, with his personality and being different, because they sometimes do this with their hands, different, because the wardrobe he wears, and wearing a cape, and just, yeah. And also, Mrs. Fox informs Mr. Fox that their nephew, Christopherson, will be coming to live for a while until Christopherson's dad feels better, because his dad is going through having pneumonia. Ash, he's not too comfortable with his cousin coming to live with them for a while. And by the way, can't forget to mention, because the line of work that both Mr. and Mrs. Fox do, Mr. Fox does, the newspapers, and Mrs. Fox, she's a painter. Yeah, and quite a good painter, and when we see later on the paint work that she's doing. So Mr. Fox, when he's off to work and such, stopping by and interested in buying this tree, and basically he is taken through the tour of the tree by Mr. Weasel, and Mr. Weasel being voiced by the director, Wes Anderson. Yeah. Mr. Weasel, because, being someone, because, with houses and such, and just like Mr. Renfield, that line of work, real estate agent, because that's what Mr. Weasel does. And we also get the introduction of Kylie, who is a, possum. Kylie being voiced by Wallace Wolodarski, if I'm saying that right. And there are moments in this movie where we see Kylie, just random moments, and those, close-up shots of the stop-motion puppets, really cool, but at the same time, you sometimes don't see them coming, just whoa, jeez. And especially with what happens with Kylie, he sometimes would be in the zone, and he would have, swirly eyes. Yeah. And Kylie being a helping hand, and eventually he would become Mr. Fox's sidekick, and what Mr. Fox and Kylie would do later on, and after Mr. Fox buys the tree, because we see that the tree is close to the location where these 3 farmhouses are at, up at the hills and such, and, a bit, far from the tree. It's, the tree's nearby these 3 farmhouses, and they belong to Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. And that's when Mr. Fox meets with Badger, and this is about, buying and purchasing the tree house, and Badger warning Mr. Fox about the 3 farmers, Bogus, Bunce, and Bean, and they're basically three of the most nastiest farmers in the valley, and Mr. Fox, saying, "Really? Tell me about them." "Okay," says Mr. Badger. And I love that scene where Badger is going through and analyzing and talking about each of them: Walter Boggess, Nathan Bunce, and Franklin Bean. Because with Walt Boggess, he is a chicken farmer, weighing the same as a young rhinoceros, eating 3 pieces of chicken every day for breakfast, lunch, supper, and dessert. And for Nate Bunce, he's a duck and goose hunter, approximately the size of a pot-bellied dwarf, and his chin being short and such, and when, he would be swimming in any swimming pool on the planet. And his homemade food, according to Badger, is homemade donuts with some duck and goose fillings, filling that in the donuts and such. And for Frank Bean, he's a turkey hunter, inventing his own, species, as Badger says, living on a liquid diet, and making his own apple cider, and, just with the apple juice that he has. And Mr. Fox later on explaining and describing the Mr. Bean's apple juice, burning in your throat and tasting like solid melted gold, and so on. And Badger, the last thing he says about, the last things he describes about Frank Bean is, being skinny as a pencil, being very smart, and possibly the scariest man currently living. And especially with what Frank Bean does later on in the movie, and being very clever and terrifying. So especially because Frank Bean sometimes being very calm. Sometimes, I say, when it comes to, event later on when all 3 of them, try to take on Mr. Fox. And Badger pointing out to Mr. Fox about an eerie, rhyme song that the local human children sing about them is pretty funny. And which, those lyrics that we saw at the start of this movie. And Badger and Mr. Fox getting to a little tussle, Mr. Fox understanding everything that Badger told him, but he's going to ignore Badger's advice and such. And Badger, in response, saying to Mr. Fox, "The cuss you are." And then it becomes funny where Mr. Fox asks Badger, "Are you cussing with me? No, you cussing with me?" And just and that's another thing, because sometimes in this movie, they wouldn't swear. They would just, obviously, because, when it comes to them, saying, maybe, say, "what the hell," or something. Instead, it's "what the cuss." So, as an example, demonstration, but anyways. And, by the way, more fun facts, because how they recorded the voice cast for Fantastic Mr. Fox, a very interesting way. And I think especially because for the setting of this film, where they would have some of the actors, most notably George Clooney, Bill Murray, Wolodarsky, if I'm still getting if I'm pronouncing his last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. They would have them record their lines say in a cabin or in a house or outside of nature, and just to have them jog and run, and because say when Mr. Fox and Kylie, they're running and so on, or sometimes in other places, obviously they would have them record some of their lines at a studio, most notably with Meryl Streep. And to go ahead and mention him, Willem Dafoe. We'll get to who Willem Dafoe voices in Fantastic Mr. Fox when I get there. Anyways, Mr. Fox insists on, with Badger to buy the tree, and thus, now the Fox family is now moving into the treehouse. And I like where, the guy in charge and giving the moving van guys, lifting the furniture and such, like giving them directions, take a left and blah, blah, blah. It's great. And eventually, and to speed things up, Kristofferson finally shows up, and this is right after they moved in and settled into their new home in the tree. And Kristofferson being voiced by Eric Chase Anderson. And already, because, and as I mentioned, Ash was not comfortable with the fact that his cousin was going to live with them, and and at times, at the start of this film and when Kristofferson showed up, especially for Mr. Fox, he's impressed by the skills that his little nephew can do, unlike, say, how he really doesn't acknowledge what his son, his flesh and blood, Ash, what he does when he's trying to, do some skills and, trying to make a good impression that, he's good at doing this, but, not quite. And, well, Kristofferson, no offense to Ash, but Kristofferson kind of better at doing that stuff. But anyways. Okay, so after that, well, and because, they've now officially settled into their new home in the tree, Mr. Fox, having Kylie help him out and basically giving Kylie some instructions on what Mr. Fox is planning to do, and living in the tree, and that it's nearby the 3 farmhouses. Well, and, not to mention because he's going through, a crisis, and, he can't help himself, and, he's planning to go back to his old fox ways, stealing some chickens and birds and stuff like that, and getting Kylie to join with him, and giving him some instructions on what they're going to do. And the first farmhouse that they're going to go to is Bogus's chicken farm. And, a little later, because, we see them making their way and sneaking out of the tree home and wearing bandit hats. And I like that sometimes where, Mr. Fox handing any character a bandit hat and just, saying, here, put this bandit hat on. Them sneaking out, in the evening time and making their way to Walt Bogus's chicken farm. And, because the dialogue that Mr. Fox and Kylie have, pretty good. And not to mention, a few times where Kylie brings up a wolf, and apparently because Mr. Fox has a phobia for wolves, and, a wolf? What wolf? And then making their way to Bogus's chicken farm, and them, just trying to go through electric fences and to take care of the guard dogs, because, Mr. Fox had some special, berries where it has some, tranquilizing stuff in it, and with them eating them, well, because knocking them out. So so far, they're achieving, they're making their way into Bogus's chicken farm, and then once again, so much, from, from bars and another electric fence, and Mr. Fox, figuring out, one of them has got to jump over the obstacle and the fence and such, but there's another, spot where there's nothing, and it's funny. And them making their way and getting the chickens, Kylie having no success on trying to bite on their necks, and so on, and them escaping, and once again knocking out the dogs, firing out those, berries with tranquilizing stuff, and, somehow they managed to trigger the alarm, and how else are they going to escape? Because they're right up front an electric fence, and, they have no other choice. They climb on the electric fence, and they get electrocuted. And Walt Bogus popping up, and the voice of Walt Bogus being voiced by Robin Hurlstone. Yeah, I think I got that last name right. He accidentally went for one of the berries. He found one of them, and he got knocked out, so. And by bringing the chickens home, and Mrs. Fox obviously noticing One piece of chicken that was brought back from Walt Bogus's farm, well, Mr. Fox basically lying to her that he picked it up at the market, and, and because she can see that it has Walt Bogus Chicken Farm tag on it, and Mr. Fox, saying, must have escaped before I bought it. Yeah, way to go, Mr. Fox, and what would happen next? But yeah, and the next farmhouse that they're going to is Nate Bunce's farmhouse, and it goes by pretty quick because, well, we see Nate Bunce. He's by the monitors, but he's not looking at the monitors because he's got headphones. I'm pretty sure he's listening to music, and he's reading a magazine. And we see on the security cameras Mr. Fox and Kylie making their way through Nate Bunce's duck and goose farm and collecting the duck and goose, and even like pulling a chain, and like a fox trap lands on one security guard dog, I should say. And Mrs. Fox definitely noticing, all the stuff that's in the freezer, and just, oh, she is slowly but surely onto something and what her hubby could possibly be doing. Just, yeah. And more with Kristofferson and Ash, because a little early on there was a moment between them, and Kristofferson sharing the same bedroom with Ash, sleeping in Ash's bedroom basically, and Ash just kind of, angry at Kristofferson. And Kristofferson at one point then started to weep, and, well, Kristofferson had to sleep on the floor, and Ash, he couldn't help it, and he does feel bad for making Kristofferson cry. And then he turns on a little train model and the tune that it plays. And which, by the way, that train model, we would see the actual train sometimes, passing by the valley. And that piece of music, like, it's in the soundtrack of the little train tune. Yeah. But yeah, with Kristofferson and Ash, because what happens to them later on? Well, because Ash is doing, each of them, they're each doing some science projects, and, for Ash, his lab partner is, it's Agnes. Agnes being voiced by, Wes Anderson's girlfriend, Juman Malouf. If I'm getting that right, I'm pretty sure. But she's too distracted. She's too distracted by Kristofferson. And, we see Kristofferson being partnered with the Beaver's son. Yeah, the Beaver's son, who's kind of a bully. The Beaver's son being voiced by Jeremy Dawson. Gotta, remember that. Voiced by. I wish Doug Walker would keep doing that. He has, but just, because I think it makes a lot of sense, voiced by. But anyways, so yeah, the Beaver's son being voiced by Jeremy Dawson, and it's named, to go ahead and name off some of the other characters, the Beaver's son's father, just, being named Beaver, being voiced by Stephen Rails. There was Mole being voiced by James Hamilton, the mole who is blind, but he's good at playing piano. Yeah. And there's also Dr. Badger being voiced by Jennifer Fergus, if I'm getting that right. And Rabbit's ex-girlfriend being voiced by Allison Abbott. Yeah. I know her. I know I've probably, she seems familiar. And there's also Rabbit Girl being voiced by Molly Cooper. And there's another rabbit, just named Rabbit, being voiced by Marlo Batali. And there's one that I'm looking at, but I'm gonna mention him later on. Yeah, it's a little voice cameo. Yeah, and if you know, and if you could recognize that voice. There's also Linda Otter being voiced by Karen Duffy, and there's also, because what happens next for Kristofferson and Ash, and after the one scene where they're doing some lab experiments, we see them playing some whack-bat, basically to the animals in Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's their very own version of baseball, basically. And, even though he is credited at the top billed cast, he only appears in this one sequence, and that being them playing whack-bat, that being Coach Skip, being voiced by good old Owen Wilson. Yeah, Owen Wilson voicing Coach Skip. And yeah, obviously, and knowing Owen Wilson, and he has such a recognizable voice, you know it's him. So yeah, he's the voice of Coach Skip, and Kristofferson addressing to the coach that where he comes from, they don't have whack-bat, and Coach Skip basically gives Kristofferson all the details and information on how whack-bat works. 5 twig runners, and so on and there's one moment where the coach calls in Ash, you're out, and even for Ash, he thought he was doing so great, but the coach can tell that no. So now it's Kristofferson's turn, and after all the information and details that the coach gave him, and this was the first time Kristofferson was knowing about whack-bat, he easily gets it. He immediately, and for the first time, is so good at it. And there is a moment where Ash commented about his dad, and Mr. Fox, having played whack-bat, and Coach Skip telling Ash that his dad was probably the best whack-bat player that they had, and, we see a trophy, which, being Mr. Fox, so, with a whack-bat. So again, Kristofferson being so good at it, and there's a moment where Ash can see Agnes basically cheering on with a sign, to Kristofferson. And it's obvious, and because what started off at the, doing lab experiments, Agnes had feelings towards Kristofferson. And also, can't forget to mention this, because one moment where, and early on, because they're swimming outside, just relaxing outside of the tree, and the second Disney song that's played in this is Love from Robin Hood. Yeah. Ash trying to be really cool and pulling off a cool trick, diving into the pool, but not quite good. But when Kristofferson does it, he's good. He was good at that, and Mr. Fox being so impressed by what Kristofferson did, jumping in the pool, and poor Ash, because him feeling jealous and feeling that probably his father would prefer his cousin as a son. It's understandable, but, and we know what's going on with the character of Ash, but at a certain point, he kind of goes too far, but still, we know what's going on with him, okay? So, it's nothing, really intentional and such, and we can tell, and as we know, what's going through Ash's mind and his feelings towards Kristofferson, and how his own father feels towards Kristofferson. Yeah. Okay. And, the next farmhouse that Kylie and Mr. Fox are planning to go to this time, they've already done Bogus and Bunce. This time, the third and final one, Frank Bean. Now they're going to Frank Bean's farm, and there was, because one moment where before they left, they had dinner. For some reason, Kylie, Ash, and Kristofferson, they were seated at their very own table, while Mr. and Mrs. Fox sat at their very own table eating dinner. I don't know why specifically, but it is funny. Also, another fun fact, parts of the treehouse is modeled after Roald Dahl and his widow's actual home. Some of the furniture and a rocking chair that Kylie sits in. Yeah, because in that one sequence where, Mr. Fox is giving Kylie the details and information on when they go to Walt Bogus's farmhouse. Yeah, in that room, because that almost being modeled after, what was inside of the house of the late Roald Dahl and his widow. It's amazing, and if you know this. So yeah, so with Mr. Fox and Kylie proceeding on to Frank Bean's farmhouse, well, a moment where, out of nowhere, Ash tags along, and he knows what he and his dad and Kylie are doing. He wants to join in, but Mr. Fox is not having any of it. It's pretty funny. And another moment where Kylie's in the zone with the swirly eyes, and then, at one point, Kristofferson shows up. Well, basically, Mr. Fox had Kristofferson join in with them and going to Frank Bean's farmhouse. And even Kristofferson wondering why he's here, why he's doing this. Yeah, well, I mean, granted, because of Kristofferson's skills, and for this, going to Frank Bean's farmhouse, probably something specific Kristofferson might have to do, and to help them out with what it is that they're going to steal from Mr. Bean's farmhouse. And when they get inside, well, they find themselves in the basement, in a basement where there's a lot of apple juice. And I like the glowing effect from those jars of apple juice. And Mr. Fox addressing to Kylie and Kristofferson that they didn't come here to steal apple juice, telling them that this is some of Frank Bean's best-made cider, and as I said early on, and what Mr. Fox says, it burns in your throat, etc., and, tasting like solid melted gold, and then at one point, we hear some snapping, and we see, even if you look closely, you can see him on top of one of those stacks, with the jars of apple juice, Bean's cider, obviously, and that being Rat, and being voiced by Willem Dafoe. And the theme music to Rat, oh, it's really good. Like, there's a bit of banjo and some whistling, and, like, how can you not love Willem Dafoe? His voice performance as Rat, really good, and, y'all are trespassing here, and even Mr. Fox notices that he's wearing a Bean security badge, and, well, as Rat establishes to Mr. Fox, it's my job. And, well, Rat about to take on Mr. Fox, and whoa, because pulling out a knife, and then the Rat starts to refer/insult Mr. Fox's wife. Gosh. And, a comment on Mr. Fox's wife, being the night girl, or just something, what the Rat says, and Kylie asking about that, and Mr. Fox addressing to Kylie. It's funny. And Rat trying to go for the attack, but, Mr. Fox being quick and such, of dodging Rat's attacks. And then at one point, we hear some noise coming from upstairs, and Kristofferson being quick to disposing Rat, down in a crate and such, and, well, they scatter and hide, and, well, we then see Mr. Bean's wife, Mrs. Bean, being voiced by the late Helen McCrory, if I'm getting her last name right, and not to mention there are a few Harry Potter cast members in this. Well, Helen McCrory, as I just mentioned, playing Mrs. Malfoy. And, well, now that I, mention him now, and, and whom voices Frank Bean, yeah, Frank Bean being voiced by the late Michael Gambon, who would be the second Dumbledore. Yeah. Not to mention that Fantastic Mr. Fox came out the same year, when the sixth Harry Potter film came out, which being the Half-Blood Prince, where Dumbledore dies. So, I mean, it's true. I just thought I'd mention it. Yeah. So yeah, Michael Gambon as the voice of Franklin Bean. Well, obviously fantastic. What Michael Gambon brought to the voice performance of Franklin Bean, just fantastic. And the design and look of Franklin Bean, well, I mean, and for all the other characters, from the humans and the animals, fantastic, especially Franklin Bean, and with the wardrobe he wears, and something that he would wear around his neck, which I'll mention in just a little bit. Yeah, so Mrs. Bean making her way down to fetch some jars of apple juice and such. Mr. Bean, saying to her that, maybe, like, get 3, but, but apparently, according to her, he drank 3 yesterday, and, because he said, all right, bring 3 up, and then her saying, no, 2's plenty, and Mr. Fox was, lucky for Mr. Fox that he managed to not be seen by her. Like, he kind of, like, bended himself, in the shape of one of those jars. And, and for Kristofferson and Kylie, they were hiding in the crate of apples. And Kylie, shocked and just, oh my cuss, is she blind? And Kristofferson making a guess on her possibly being blind. I mean, how do they know? Well, I guess they just know. They figured it out that she is blind. Anyways, and a cool shot where Frank Bean kind of like scans the basement, and we can see a little bit of his face when he's smoking his cigarette. And for Mr. Fox, Kristofferson, and Kylie, they successfully get out of there and steal what they have stolen. Those jars of Franklin Bean's cider. And after that, we then cut to a group meeting where all 3 of the farmers come together and basically, talking about, the fox stealing from their farms. And Frank Bean has a plan to get revenge on Mr. Fox. And Franklin Bean had figured out where the fox is living, which being at the treehouse, and later that, I think, tomorrow evening, Bean, Bunce, and Bogus, they will go up to the tree, and they will wait and start to attack and kill Mr. Fox. And even Mrs. Fox, her really suspecting something about her husband and what he could possibly be doing. And Mrs. Fox, saying to him, if what I think is happening, it better not be, how she says it. And just to say more on Mrs. Fox and with Meryl Streep's voice performance, fantastic. If I remember correctly, Cate Blanchett, I think, was originally supposed to be the voice of Mrs. Fox, but I think due to scheduling conflicts, I want to say, that didn't ultimately happen. So then eventually, Meryl Streep would become the official voice of Mrs. Fox. And still, she was good. Besides, because Mr. Fox has an American accent, so why can't Mrs. Fox? I'm just saying, but, And, for that matter, because their son as well having an American accent. So, yeah. A handful of American voices and British voices, and especially that goes for the humans, definitely. Anyways, because, that's the thing, because pretty much, I'm pretty sure that, almost all of the animal characters have American accents, but as for the humans, they have British accents. That's interesting, but cool at the same time. So, the next time that Mr. Fox and Kylie, them sneaking out of the tree the next evening, little do they know at first that, in one of those bushes, the 3 farmers are watching them and about to open fire on them. And Mr. Fox, smelling something and sensing that something's quite off. And that's when he can smell and identify the scent of all 3 of them, and with the foods and such that they have. And, all three, as he says to Kylie, and kill him, shouts Franklin Bean, and them scattering, and we see something fly off of Mr. Fox, and, well, they shot off his tail. Yeah, well, and obviously that is from the book. Poor Mr. Fox, his tail being shot. And, not to mention, there are some lines from the book itself that make its way into the movie. Most notably, when they shot off his tail, and Mr. Bean, Frank Bean, picks up the tail and, he says, "We got the tail, but we missed the fox." That's good, that's good. I don't know why, but I just do. I love those moments where Frank Bean is speaking directly to one of his men at his farm, Petey, on walkie-talkie. I just love that for some reason, and with Michael Gambon's voice performance, I don't know. I think it's really good, and if you feel the same way too, yeah. If that's one of your favorite moments in Fantastic Mr. Fox, he basically calls up Petey on walkie-talkie, asking Petey to bring over some shovels, and, well, they're going to start digging, around the tree and get to them. And, yeah, again, poor Mr. Fox, his tail being shot, and, well, unfortunately, tails don't grow back, and Mr. Fox accepting the fact that he will be tailless for the rest of his fox life, and, yeah. And Ash then making a mean comment on Kristofferson's father. And again, with Kristofferson's father having pneumonia, oh my gosh. Like I said early on, we know what's going on, through Ash and such, and his feelings towards, his cousin. We get it. But, still, a little bit of, oh my gosh, what a savage he is. But, still, very mixed on what goes on with the character of Ash, yeah. And Kristofferson obviously being very upset by this, and how very skilled he was by, throwing a piece of acorn on the floor, it bouncing around the kitchen, and it lands in the bowl perfectly. And Kristofferson, all he says is, "Excuse me, everyone, I'm gonna go meditate for half an hour." And Mrs. Fox telling Ash that he's got, 29 minutes, to come up with a proper apology. And Ash just letting it out on his parents and, well, Kylie in the same room, "Where's my bandit hat? Why didn't I get shot at? You don't think I'm good at anything? Well, maybe you're right, thanks." And just him storming off. And, yeah, I mean, again, he does have a point, but still. Anyways. And Mr. Fox, now he starts to regret that he did not listen to his lawyer, which being Badger. Why the cuss did I not listen to my lawyer? And going on, saying that he will for a while, have trouble sleeping on his back and so on. Yeah, because his tail got shot off. And then, well, that's when, the three farmers start to dig their tree and such, and, well, all five of them, from Mr. and Mrs. Fox, Kristofferson, Ash, and Kylie, all five of them start to dig, shouts Mr. Fox. And one of the first places that they find themselves in is this, underground crystal cave, I want to say. Well, I mean, basically when Mr. and Mrs. Fox walk into another part of this underground tunnel cave, they find themselves in a room of crystals because, well, Mrs. Fox, losing her temper and basically scratching her husband's side of the cheek and, well, basically letting him have it that, he made a promise to her 12 fox years ago, that day when they got trapped in that fox trap, and he would find another life of work and such, but at that point, he lied to her, and, well, because Mr. Fox, all that he can say is, he's a wild animal. Which, it is true, but the fact is, and as Mrs. Fox also tells him, that he is now he is also a husband and a father. And if I'm sure as though, because I don't think Mr. Fox really wanted to become a father, but obviously, he loves being a father, and with his son, especially later on in this movie, the moments that he and Ash have, and Mrs. Fox predicting that, in the end, that they will die, but thankfully they don't. And when coming back to the three farmers and them still digging, they even managed to find one of Mrs. Fox's paintings, and Frank Bean once again calling up Petey on walkie-talkie, bringing in some bulldozers and such, tractors, to really tear down the tree and to get to them, and once again, all five of them have to dig further down underground. Even at one point, when they rest for the evening, we see some cave drawings, okay, it's funny, just, And Kristofferson, upset with Ash because Ash made this, rumor or something towards Kristofferson that he has beagle ticks, which obviously Kristofferson doesn't, And one moment where Mr. Fox makes a comment that probably one of those farmers is wearing his tie as a necktie. His tail is, wearing the tail around their neck as a necktie, and, Frank Bean is wearing it as a necktie. So, and just, how very cruel of Frank Bean, because when they shot off his tail and it became a necktie, ooh, yeah. And to speed things up still because, how further, Bogus, Bunsen, Bean, dig underground, even, setting off an explosion, and, because the guy who, set off the explosion, being named Explosives Man, being voiced by Tristan Oliver, and just basically, really, having one line, contact, and boom, a big explosion, and when they come up to it, there's a small hole, and another moment with, Frank Bean, right before he gets on the walkie-talkie with Petey, he asks both Bogus and Buns how many men they have working on each of their farms. For Bogus, he has 35, and for Buns, he has 36, and for Bean, he has 37. And by putting all of those men together, 35 plus 36 plus 37 equals 108 altogether. Yeah, I love how quick Frank Bean puts all the math together. I wish I was like that. Don't we all? And how Frank Bean does it? Yeah, so again, 35 plus 36 plus 37 equals 108. Yeah, so all 108 men of all three of the three farmers. There are three farms coming together to hunt down Mr. Fox and all the other animals. And again, because calling up Petey on the walkie-talkie, and I like how off in the far distance, one guy points at Petey and Petey answering, and because assembling all three of them, they're men from their farmers, and and this soon gets the attention of the news, and the news reporter, Action 12 reporter, that's how he's credited. I keep forgetting that he did a voice in this movie. How do I keep forgetting that not recognizing his voice? Action 12 reporter is Brian Cox. Brian Cox is the voice of the Action 12 reporter. Because at times, the reporter from Action 12, basically giving the news on what all three farmers are doing and hunting this fox and such, and again, when coming back to Mr. Fox and all four of them, still digging underground further, and one comment that Mr. Fox makes, this is going to be one total cluster cuss. No kidding. And then, at one point, and to speed things up, all five of them, they come face to face with all the other animals, because apparently they're in the same situation as them, and Mr. Fox, because the candlelight went out, and because they were digging, and when lighting the candle again, they see them there, and Mr. Fox saying, "You scared the cuss out of us!" And Badger, enraged towards Mr. Fox, and I love it, and with Bill Murray's voice performance, I've already mentioned Bill Murray, yeah, because Bill Murray, the voice of Badger, really good, and not to mention that, for those of you, like me, knowing Wes Anderson so well and with his, world of movies, Bill Murray being one of Wes Anderson's top lucky charms, because yeah, Bill Murray has appeared in quite a good chunk of Wes Anderson's movies, yeah, and a couple of others. I know that Jason Schwartzman did appear, I think, in one or two more of Wes Anderson's films, I want to say, and also Willem Dafoe, he as well. So yeah, I recall Willem Dafoe being in a couple of other of Wes Anderson's movies. But anyways, so Badger, enraged towards Mr. Fox, just, a lot of good animals are probably gonna die because of you, and, you know, basically gives Mr. Fox the details on what the heck has been going on with them, and when the farmers then started going after them, and so on. Just, yeah, all of the animals in the valley are screwed because of Mr. Fox's doing. And even though, of course, he really didn't intentionally meant for this to happen, and for all of them still, and there's one moment where, the beaver's son, being a bully towards Ash, and forcing Ash to eat some of this, like, wet mud, and, yeah, and nice on Kristofferson's part, you know, loving and helping out his cousin, he takes on, the beaver's son, just punching him and flipping him, and that causes, the beaver's son to weep, and just and Ash, telling Kristofferson that he can fight his own fights, but Kristofferson knows, and telling him that he can't. Yeah, so no way he could. And yeah, so, sure enough, things kind of settle down between Mr. Fox and all the animals, and, well, Mr. Fox has another idea up his sleeves, and, well, this, at one point, he is, like, scanning and analyzing one section where, yeah, there's dirt and where they can dig, and, basically, he talks to his wife to go to Mrs. Badger and all the others, to go to where to meet up and go to this specific location that Mr. Fox tells his wife, and Mrs. Fox then at one point turns to Ash, licks off the wet mud and such off of him, the dirt, and Mrs. Fox telling her son that she knows what it's like being different. And yeah, so what happens next is Mr. Fox, Ash, Kristofferson, Kylie, Badger, and all the other male animals, they work together and they start to dig, and, well, at one point, Mr. Fox has them to wait, and he starts digging up, and, well, they hit the jackpot. They start to hit some jackpots where there's chickens, there's goose, swab, ducks, you know, and obviously from the three farmers. And a little song number that plays, and as, you know, they hit the jackpots, being sung by Petey. Yeah, Petey. Again, Petey being one of Frank Bean's men on his farm, and when he called him up on the walkie-talkie, and Petey being voiced by Jarvis Cocker. Yeah, who is a singer. In fact, I recall that, yeah, he was in one of the Harry Potter films, The Goblet of Fire. You know, at the annual, like, Christmas ball, you know? And at one point later on during the ball, there's a rock and roll band, you know, a Wizarding World's very own rock and roll band, and the lead singer being played by Jarvis Cocker. So yeah, so he's the voice of Petey. And actually, fun fact, originally Jarvis Cocker was supposed to be the narrator for Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yeah, originally there was going to be a narration to Fantastic Mr. Fox, but ultimately, I think, yeah, because they felt that the narration really wasn't necessary, and I think especially because I've seen the one deleted scene where Petey basically starts off the movie with a little introduction. So, well, obviously, Petey was to have been the narrator. But, I mean, Petey still being in the movie, and with Jarvis Cocker voicing / singing as Petey. Yeah, and the song that Petey sings, it's quite good. And for some reason, I remember when me and my parents, we watched the movie, I'm not making this up, I swear, where my dad made a comment that it kind of sounds like something Johnny Cash, I don't know, and with the singing, but just overall, Petey's song, which I think, yeah, that's how it's credited and called, Petey's song. It's pretty good, and with the, jamboree, like, instruments with a banjo, going, 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 just, yeah, and with a do-da-diddle-da-dee-da-da-da-da. Even the Action 12 reporter and the camera guy, they're enjoying this and they're getting into it. And Frank Bean at one point popping up and asking Petey, "What are you singing, Petey?" And Petey basically establishing and telling his boss that, singing like a little ditty and so on. And Frank Bean's reply is, "That's just weak songwriting. You wrote a bad song, Petey." And he flicks his cigar at Petey. Well, not really, just like throws it on the ground. Just, yeah. Now awkward for Petey, because after what Frank Bean said. Poor Petey. Well, he tried, and I think it's still a catchy tune. And then, when coming back to the animals, well, because they hit the jackpots and they make their way to the location to meet with the other animals, yeah. Basically, and according to Mr. Fox, they took everything. Yeah, we took everything, says Mr. Fox, and when we cut to Frank Bean, then he says, "They took everything?" Call you back, Petey. And Bogus and Bunce, their comment on this, and, saying that they probably should have stayed out of it. And, well, I mean, it just got worse and worse for each of them. Yeah, so, what the farmers do to them, well, what the animals do back at them. So, yeah, it's obvious. And then a moment with Frank Bean losing his temper and just going in complete rage, like pretty much like wrecking the inside of this van that they're in, this like little like Homer van, just you know what I'm talking about. Well, at one point, when he looks at his special machine with making his very own apple juice, he gets an idea. And what is the idea specifically that he's going to do? Well, but before that, when coming back to the animals, because they took everything and they've basically decorated one part, underground. Like, there's literally a kitchen. There's a piano. Just, where'd they get that stuff anyways? I mean, yes, we know they took the food and so on, but how did they get, like, say, a kitchen and a piano and a table? They just did, We're left to guess and wonder how they got all that stuff. Again, from a kitchen, a table, and a piano, and as the camera pans, like, what all of the animals are doing, like Mole, as I mentioned, he is a piano player, he's playing the piano, and the female animals, from Mrs. Fox, Mrs. Badger, and the rabbit, cooking up some meals in the kitchen, and a conversation that happens between Badger and Mr. Fox, and then at one point, Ash turns to Kristofferson and tells Kristofferson that he has a plan to go and steal back his dad's tail being used as a necktie. And even Ash made his very own bandit hat and gave one to Kristofferson, a proper bandit hat, obviously. And thus, they sneak off and, thus they're going to try and steal back Mr. Fox's tail. And with the dinner that happens with Mr. Fox and all the animals, and a kind of a jerk moment for Mr. Fox, like, basically talking over Badger and saying this, like, dinner speech and such. Well, I mean, And when coming back to Ash and Kristofferson, how far they've made their way and through, like, the sewers and making their way into the kitchen of Frank Bean's house, and Mrs. Bean is nowhere in sight, and them trying to find and locate and steal back Mr. Fox's tail. But it's nowhere to be seen. However, at one point, Ash points out to Kristofferson these special made, like, treats that Mrs. Bean made. Yeah. And, well, obviously, and come on, Ash, how can you not know? Because clearly it's a trap, and that's what it is. And because the fox tail is nowhere in sight, and when they discover that, well, Frank Bean is wearing it. Yeah, he's had it the whole time, of course, and why would it be in the house? And then, sure enough, well, because they say that Mrs. Bean is blind, well, she knows and senses the presence of Kristofferson and Ash, and with some goggles that she's wearing, and with, like, with a knife and so on, yeah, she's about to go after them. Well, luckily, they managed to escape, only one of them, and that was Ash. Unfortunately for Kristofferson, he didn't make it, and, well, he was captured by Mrs. Bean. And right when Mr. Fox finishes the toast, well, he then starts to sense and notice that something's not quite right. And he realizes and points out, you know, where are the boys? Yeah, Ash and Kristofferson are missing. They're not at the table, yeah. And then at one point, well, what Frank Bean was planning to do with his special machine making apple juice, well, basically bringing in a fire truck and using the fire hose from the fire truck, basically going to flood where the animals are. Yeah, and one drop of cider lands on Mr. Fox's glass. He takes a sip of it, and he knows it's cider, and with the teeth. And then, sure enough, a big pool of apple juice / cider basically hits them, and actually, that was the only time in this movie, and with the shots with them, being pushed by the flood of apple juice / cider, that was CGI, actually. I mean, everything else being stop motion, but except for that. And you know what? It did look stop motion-y. I mean, obviously, they wanted to, I would assume that they wanted to have, the CG shots of the water, with the apple juice / cider look stop motion-y. And you know what? Looks pretty good. Yeah, it does look like that. And now they've been flooded down the sewers, and, well, still, no sign of Ash and Kristofferson, but then Ash, somehow managed to know where they are, and yeah, and Mr. Fox being quite upset towards his son, and, and Kristofferson is not here, and noticing that, his son is, wearing a fake bandit hat, and Ash basically addressing to his father that it's his fault and telling him that both he and Kristofferson went back to steal his tail. And that moment where, like, Mr. Fox just you could tell, and just like him just like stuttering and the look on his face, yeah. And yeah, because Kristofferson nowhere in sight, and well, we see that, yeah, because he got captured by Mrs. Bean, and Frank Bean giving orders to his wife what to do with Kristofferson. Wrap him up in some newspapers and, put him in a box with some holes punched at the top and so on. And when we find out later where Kristofferson's been located at, where they've placed him, and, well, then I think, yeah, because Mr. Beaver basically informs everybody that the location of where they are specifically down in the sewers, yeah, they're permanently stuck. And because, well, there's a van blocking the only way that they could get out, and, make it to surface, And Mr. Fox feeling more guilty, and one moment between him and Mrs. Fox that are right at a huge waterfall, and Mr. Fox basically telling his wife that, he will turn himself over to the farmers, and possibly, by doing so, they'll let his wife and everybody else live. They possibly will all be spared, if he turns himself in. And yeah, and a very emotional moment between them, and man, because Mrs. Fox telling Mr. Fox that, as much as she loves him, she wishes that she never got married to him. But obviously, later on, things have been patched up, and yeah, so, and I think that that was just really and eventually being upset talk, but anyways. And then a moment between Mr. Fox and his son, and before he's about to turn himself in, and Mr. Fox being apologetic to Ash and so on, yeah. And Mr. Fox, he is about to disembark and saying goodbye to them and waving a surrender flag, white flag, and cannot forget to mention this, obviously, because at times in this movie, Mr. Fox doing a trademark, as he establishes later on, because, yeah, whistle and clicking, yeah. And when it came to him disembarking and saying goodbye to them, it was a very slow whistle and clicking, goodbye, and that's what he says, and yep, about to turn himself in, and golly, because what he was describing to his wife about what they would possibly do to his body, yeah, more than likely. And well, we see, Kristofferson, looks as though that he's in an attic, and he asks for a glass of water, but nobody's there. And Badger and all the other animals, they're looking for Kristofferson, but then we once again see the rat, and him telling them they got the boy. And and then he throws them a letter from the farmers, and Badger wondering why it's cut out letters from magazines, newspapers, and so on. And Kylie telling Badger, because apparently he knows this, it's to to protect their identities. And Badger reading a little bit of the letter, and then, well, Ash stepping in, and, well, because the farmers thought that they got Mr. Fox's son, but no, addressing to the rat that he is Mr. Fox's son, and Rat commenting, I can see the resemblance, and, well, about to attack him, and that's what he does. Mr. Fox, he was trying to cut, through, trying to get outside, but he heard the sounds of the rat and his son, and yeah. Well, change of plans for Mr. Fox, obviously, and well, because, Ash about to be captured by Rat as he pulls out a sack and just that. And then, well, then steps in Mrs. Fox and her taking on Rat, and once again, Rat flirting towards Mrs. Fox, and yeah, just her, saying, am I being flirted by a rat? And Rat, well, pushing, Mrs. Fox and poor Weasel, yeah, pushing both of them out of the way and, capturing Ash, but then Mr. Fox stepping in, and then a little fight between them, and they find themselves in one room with electricity and so on, and just the shots of them and with the electric going off, and when one shot where we see the rat get electrocuted and Ash is okay, Fox goes to basically slowly kill Rat, biting on his neck. And then, Rat basically giving them the information and the location of where Kristofferson is at. That he's at the Bean Annex, yeah. Locked in a crate and blindfolded, and yeah. And Mr. Fox asking Rat, all these wasted years, what were you looking for? And Rat, could barely speak, cider. Looking for, the basic, ingredients to Bean's, finest cider and such. And basically it's just, gunk from the sewers and, slurping it and, melted gold. And it's kind of emotional. It kind of is emotional with the music and Rat dying, and when he dies, there's X's. It's kind of like, I recall my dad, I think probably both my parents, commenting this, that it reminded them of, you know, the bandits in A Christmas Story, and then they have crosses. But A Christmas Story and Fantastic Mr. Fox weren't the only two films to do something like that. It's been in other films, but yeah, but as an example, of course. And, well, technically, and according to Ash, Rat redeemed himself, and Mr. Fox, his comment, you know, redemption, sure. But in the end, he's just another dead, you know, paled rat in a, you know, in a garbage can behind a Chinese restaurant, just, yeah. And putting his body, you know, into the water, and as it, you know, floats away, and Kylie making a comment, he went bananas. Yes, he did, says Mr. Fox. So, because Mr. Fox's suicide mission was canceled, and because of what happened with Rat and Ash, well, this time they're taking action to save Kristofferson and to take on the farmers. And Mr. Fox making a new toast and basically, you know, getting all the animals to, you know, the skills that they can do and what they can specifically do, and to prepare themselves, you know, to make a run for it and to go after Kristofferson. Yeah. And one of them, yeah, because one that I did not name until now, because now that we're up to this, well, one of them being a field mouse, and the field mouse was voiced by Adrian Brody. Yeah, good old Adrian Brody has a voice cameo in this as the field mouse. Like, did some of you even recognize his voice? I know I didn't the first time, but anyways. So yeah, and Mr. Fox, well, he sends out a letter to the farmers and doing the exact same thing as they did, you know, taking letters from magazines, newspapers, and so on. I don't trust him, says Frank Bean. And thus, yeah, where they will meet up and where the sewer is and so on, yeah. And, you know, and as long as the farmers bring Kristofferson, but they didn't, and, well, his voice being played on a record player, well, you know, a tape recorder, basically, you know, and, and, well, little do the farmers know what Mr. Fox and the animals are doing, because lighting up something, and Frank Bean noticing this and saying, what the cuss is he burning? And basically it's like a burned pine cone, and obviously because this has to do with Whack-Bat, I assume, but anyways, because like they use a pine cone for Whack-Bat, the pine cone being basically the baseball. And yeah, just a lot of pine cones that are set on flames being thrown, and some parts of the, you know, town being set on fire. Even the three farmers are accidentally set on fire. And Frank Bean's son, who has, I think, just only like 2 scenes in this movie, is watching TV. And yeah, Bean's son being voiced by Garth Jennings. And Bean's son, the comments that he makes, like, look at Dad's necktie, and Dad's on fire. Yeah, what a dork he is, this is the way he looks, but anyways. And then, well, now Mr. Fox and Kylie, they can proceed on and get on a motorcycle and to go after and save Kristofferson. And Mrs. Fox doing the same thing as the explosive guy, you know, contact, and yeah. And you think that they were getting on that big motorcycle. Well, no, they got on a little motorcycle, yeah. And by the way, because, you know, those shots where we see them being very small, all of the animals basically, like, size comparison to them and the humans, to me, I mean, I don't want to make a huge complaint about it, but, it doesn't seem quite right, because, come on, we've all seen the actual sizes of, say, a fox, a possum, a badger. Come on, in this, they don't have to be that small. But again, I don't want to make a huge complaint, and, you know, because it's fine how it is in the movie. It is what it is, but anyways. So, yeah, again, they got on a small motorcycle, perfect size for them, and thus they make their destination to where Kristofferson is. And, well, little did they know that behind them and getting on the motorcycle, Ash. Now Ash is with them. And to speed things up, because, well, them making their way to the location of where Kristofferson is being held, them breaking in, and even, yeah, Kylie asking Mr. Fox, like, why he does that whistle and clicking, and, you know, what? That's my trademark. Yeah. And as they proceed on, well, they come face to face with a dog, and they are puzzled, like, you know, to Kylie and Ash, like, they think the dog has some foamy soap in his mouth, but no, that's not what it is, and Mr. Fox knows this. It's rabies, basically. And Mr. Fox commenting that, you know, not to look directly at the dog, you know, the eyes and such. And Mr. Fox having them climb up, you know, to where Kristofferson is in the attic, and, you know, being addicts. And Mr. Fox trying to distract the dog with a doggy bone chew toy. But things escalate when the dog starts to go in complete rage. And when Ash, he's able to, you know, go down in the attic and to rescue his cousin. And that's when, you know, Ash is being apologetic to Kristofferson and so on. And when Ash had no luck trying to break down the cage that he was in, and causing the cage to fall over. Yeah, but in the end, Kristofferson's okay. And when coming back to Mr. Fox, him being chased by that rabid dog, and, you know, eventually he climbed his way, you know, out of sight from the dog. And now Mr. Fox is in the zone with the swirly eyes when Kylie asks if he's okay, and we cut to Mr. Fox with the swirly eyes. He's in the zone, you know. It's funny. And, well, for them to escape, but when they come face to face with Bogus Bunsen Bean and all the other, you know, workers of their farms, yeah. This kind of being a trap, basically, and some really good music playing, and Mr. Fox, and this is actually the first and only time where we see Mr. Fox coming face to face with the farmers, and most notably Frank Bean. And Mr. Fox, I love this, and with George Clooney's fantastic voice performance as Mr. Fox, again, all of them fantastic at the voice performances that they give to these characters, from the animals and to the humans. So Mr. Fox letting Frank Bean have it, you know, because of all the things that they did to them. Your tractors uprooted my tree, your gunman kidnapped my nephew, your rat insulted my wife, your posse so-and-so, and you shot off my tail, and close-up shots with both Frank Bean and Mr. Fox, and, you know, I'm not leaving without that necktie. And Frank Bean kind of having a smirk, and kill him, and yeah, them opening fire on them, and well, then Ash, you know, has an idea, and, you know, telling his dad, Kylie and Kristofferson, that he'll be right back, and he makes a run for it, and basically doing the obstacle skills and movements as it's done for Whack-Bat, yeah. And Mr. Fox sees what he's doing, and, you know, dodge the so-and-so, knock the cedars, blah, 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 and ultimately when Ash does a twirl, unlocks the lock from the doors where, you know, they got in and where the rabid dog is, and, well, Ash unleashing the rabid dog, and the rabid dog randomly chasing them. Even, like, if you notice, like, Petey kind of tripped, and yeah. And then now the rabid dog is going after Frank Bean, mainly because of the necktie, Mr. Fox's tail, and like a few seconds of, you know, the dog staring at Frank Bean staring at the dog, and while the Bogus Bunsen Bean theme song is being played, the rabid dog then just rips apart poor Mr. Fox's tail. You know, poor Mr. Fox. But, I mean, in the end, he still got it, and them escaping on the motorcycle, and Mr. Fox now complimenting on what his son did. And this time, he got his very own bandit hat. Nice to see. And, well, as they ride off, good on Christopherson's part to quickly grab the, what was left of Mr. Fox's tail, and basically going up a ramp, with motorcycles, and just, you go flying, and holy suspenseful cause, however they say it, it's funny, yeah. And they manage to escape, and, well, technically, the three farmers, Bean, Bogus, and Bunce, they're defeated. And Frank Bean, calling up Petey on walkie-talkie, Petey, bring a ladder, because, they're stuck, and because of the rabid dog. And word is sent to the animals that they're on their way back. Mission accomplished, Christopherson's been saved, and, well, apparently, because when we cut back to them still on the motorcycle, because Kylie told them, not to turn around. I don't know if it had to do with the remains of Mr. Fox's tail, but, because, he told them not to turn around, but they did, well, they stop. And as, at times in this movie being mentioned about, when they mention wolves and Mr. Fox having a phobia of wolves, they come face to face with a black wolf. And the black wolf, being out where there's snow and such, and beautiful choir that we hear, and Mr. Fox asking the wolf, where do you come from? What are you doing here? And trying to speak a different language, and telling the wolf that I have a phobia of wolves, and then he gets a bit teary-eyed, and then he does this with his paw. And the wolf does so in return. That's cool. And, Mr. Fox complimenting on what a beautiful creature he is, and telling Kylie, Ash, and Christopherson to wish him luck out there. Yeah. And that the wolf can, will manage to, survive and such. And as the wolf leaves and they ride off on the motorcycle, and seeing the train pass by, and, well, the aftermath / epilogue for, the characters. Well, for the three farmers, well, nothing much left for them to do, and with the Action 12 reporter being there, and, talking about foxes and so on, yeah. And we see the new lives for all the animals living down in the sewers, and then at one point, well, Mr. Fox has Ash, Christopherson, Mrs. Fox, and also Agnes is there too, because they were doing some meditation. And Mr. Fox and Kylie, they came in, and because having them follow Mr. Fox, and Mr. Fox found something, jackpot for them, and they can easily get some food. And especially, after, closing time, they find themselves in, in how small they are, to them, a huge supermarket. There's everything that they could take and such, yeah. And, yeah, it's pretty funny, because, between Agnes and Christopherson, and with Ash, and one funny moment with Kylie doing his own trademark. And then, out of nowhere, Mrs. Fox breaks the news to Mr. Fox that she's pregnant again. Yeah, so, either having another boy or girl, and, well, Ash is going to have a sibling. So, yeah. And Mr. Fox giving a toast, and then at one point, because both Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox, they both glow at one point. Yeah, seeing them both glow in one shot, just, yeah. And then to finish off the film, well, a little dance number that they have. And Ash having his own, music recorder, and just like what, his father has. I think, it's the same thing. Now Ash is wearing it. And them dancing, and, well, as the camera pans out and, we come outside of the supermarket, well, is it not obvious? It's a supermarket that's funded by Bogus, Bunsen, Bean. It's their supermarket. Yeah. And with the end credits, yeah. Not to mention, one more thing to point out, because, try my best not to leave out some specific things, especially in Fantastic Mr. Fox. Sometimes, we would get some funny and random texts. I'm pretty sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, obviously I had to mention that and couldn't forget to mention that, but yeah. Fantastic Mr. Fox. What a fantastic stop-motion masterpiece, masterpiece of a stop-motion movie this is, and being done by Wes Anderson, in which, this being his first ever stop-motion film. The story in Fantastic Mr. Fox is really good from beginning to end. The cast of characters, the funny moments, and, some emotional moments here and there, definitely. The music and score, some funny shots with the stop motion, and yeah, because with the funny moments and so on, yeah. And some shots where you didn't see coming, and especially with those close-up shots and just, unexpected moments, but anyways. And, with the beautiful stop motion to this, and with the fall vibe and feel in this movie, yeah, just what more do I have to say? Fantastic Mr. Fox is a really good stop-motion animated film from good old Wes Anderson, one of his, finest movies that he has done, and, this being, one of those movie adaptations of Roald Dahl's books. It was a good one, without a doubt. And I'm giving Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox, well, what the heck, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox. And what about you guys? What did you think of Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox itself? Is it one of your favorite Wes Anderson films? One of your favorite stop-motion films? Was Fantastic Mr. Fox one of your first Wes Anderson films, like me? What were some of your favorite moments from Fantastic Mr. Fox, and with the characters, the funny moments and the unexpected moments, and with its animation? Just, yeah. Overall, what do you think of Wes Anderson's Mr. Fox itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And stay tuned later tonight, because the next film I'm going to be reviewing, that's another animated feature film, this time being computer animated. Well, we go from a stop-motion film about a sly, clever, fantastic fox to a computer animated film that's about 4 spy-like penguins. I'm pretty sure you know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. Again, stay tuned for that. Take care, and peace out. I had to.